Lee, and I'm a Senior Marketing Manager for Partnerships at Indiegogo. We have a fantastic webinar for you today that will cover how to use IBM's tools and services to accelerate the development of your IoT product. We're very excited today to have Greg Gorman as our speaker. Greg is IBM's Director of Worldwide Operations and Internet of Things Developer Advocacy. Before I turn things over to Greg, I will give a quick overview of Indiegogo for those who are new to the platform, as well as our partnerships with Arrow Electronics and IBM. We will then turn the presentation over to Greg, who will do a deep dive into the variety of IoT, analytics, security, and developer services provided by IBM to IoT entrepreneurs. At the very end, we'll have time for a Q&A, so please get your questions ready. All right, so for those of you who aren't familiar with us, who is Indiegogo? Originally launched as a crowdfunding platform, Indiegogo is now the place for entrepreneurs to move their ideas quickly from concept to market. Our mission is to empower people to unite around ideas that matter to them and together make those ideas come to life. Entrepreneurs on Indiegogo are able to showcase their ideas directly to users, take orders for products early in their life cycle, and ultimately build direct relationships with their first customers. As part of our mission, we support entrepreneurs through every stage of product development, helped by a growing set of innovative partnerships in manufacturing, retail, and more. We teamed up with Arrow Electronics and IBM to offer the Arrow certification program. Through our joint partnership, which began last year, Indiegogo, Arrow, and now IBM are helping entrepreneurs get production ready. Arrow Electronics supports companies of all sizes, from startups and Indiegogo entrepreneurs to multinational corporations, and they help them manage their product lifecycle from design to manufacturing. The Arrow certification in less than 1 year has engaged with over several thousand entrepreneurs via the Indiegogo platform. Arrow engineers have provided these entrepreneurs with expertise on everything from developing working proofs of concept to a custom prototype. So I'm sure you're wondering, what are the benefits of becoming Arrow certified? Here you can see just a few of the benefits that entrepreneurs get when they become certified through the program. From promotional opportunities to a chance to win flash funding, entrepreneurs get access to engineering consultations, access to Arrow and IBM tools, discounts, and more. Arrow is actually giving away $1 million to Arrow certified entrepreneurs this year. So there's still time for you to join the program and have a chance to win a share. IBM's role specifically is the official cloud technology partner for the Arrow certification program. Entrepreneurs in the program receive no charge access to IBM's essential IoT and Watson services to help them develop their prototyping software. And with that, I'm very happy to turn things over to Greg Gorman, who once again is IBM's Director of Worldwide Operations and Internet of Things Developer Advocacy. Greg?
All right, thanks. Hi, everybody, and I appreciate you attending the webinar today. I won't grace your screen with my ugly face. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Florida today, and maybe some of you might get a little jealous if you see the sunshine and palm trees out there. So we'll just step away from that for today. And
Greg, I believe your audio has shorted out.
now, is it working again?
Working again.
Is it working again? All right.
Yep.
I don't know. I didn't touch anything. We'll see. Sorry about that. So anyway, read it from the bottom up, and we've got a cloud infrastructure built worldwide. It says approaching about 60 data. I think by the end of the year should be around 65 in gobs of different countries, and there's 2 or 3 in multiple countries, obviously. But that way, then you can run your operations where you need to globally distribute your operations. On top of that, then is a data platform that allows you to manage it and distribute the data as well, or keep the data within the boundaries of a country. There's certain rules, especially in Europe, about personal data that can't leave the boundaries of many of those countries, and so we want to be sure we can provide for that. Then you can say right above that, as far as how to understand and manage and leverage all that data, is AI and cognitive. Now that you've got data and you've got a worldwide infrastructure, what do you do with that data and how do you find something interesting about it? We're building, obviously, around the Watson brand, a bunch of things there. And then we've also got now teams building vertical slices. So this top layer is more of a vertical picture where we're doing kind of end-to-end solutions, and we'll work with various companies and entrepreneurs to try and help with getting your end-to-end solution built the way that you want it to, and to support the kinds of ideas that you have. So hopefully, as your business grows and the kinds of things that you do, we'll be able to support you on that. The other thing that we've got too that's recently been announced, and I think it's going to be really important for some businesses now. Not so much for an entrepreneur, but there may be situations where you're working with a client who's in this space. And this is really the kind of cloud that's right for you, you might say. There's a lot of people that start with either a private cloud or their on-premise basic solution they have already today. And maybe they built sort of a quote-unquote cloud of themselves, that they try and support and run around. So before you can move to a completely public cloud, and re-architect everything, and some people may not ever want to based on their the family jewels and their particular intellectual property. They may not just ever want to put that on a public cloud somewhere. We've developed a hybrid cloud technology that makes it transparent and seamless, so you can run what looks like a cloud that runs on an on-premise data center and use that for maybe the keys to the kingdom kinds of operations, because that's a little more expensive, and then link it seamlessly with the public cloud offerings from IBM. So that way then you have access to a lot more services as well as a lot lower cost for that kind of infrastructure, for those kinds of workloads. So there's, I think, several ways that we can structure the way these cloud operations work in any environment. I think that's pretty exciting as well. It helps it gain maximum flexibility for everything. I put a picture up here. Obviously, there's more data centers than this now, but that's kind of the idea here, is that we just want to show that there's operations you can do just from bare metal if you want just a machine to go run on, and that's fine. Or you can go all the way up to fully platform as a service and infrastructure as a service type operations, whatever you need to do. The most typical way people do this stuff is using containers. A lot of them will run VMware. We announced a partnership with them a few years ago. So if you've already got VMware in-house, it's pretty easy to drop that on the cloud and keep running. Above that, then, we're using all of the open source containers that are available out there. So you can run your applications that way in your own containers. Or you can go all the way up to Cloud Foundry. There's a whole implementation of that, and that's personally what I use quite a bit for all the stuff that I work on. And then you've got the top and OpenWhisk. There's a lot of things you can do, just top to bottom, depending on where you started from, where you're at, and where you need to go. And we try to make it as flexible as possible. And then, like I said, focusing on open standards, so that way you can easily migrate into the cloud at either a local or a hybrid or a public area, and use whatever containers you have to be able to quickly bring things up and running. Like I said, for initial starts, sometimes you just want to start on the far right, either at OpenWhisk or Cloud Foundry, depending on where you are in your company development cycle already as well. There's a bunch of AI services, and I'm going to hit on a few of these a little later because I want to give you a feel for that. And I'm going to show, I think I've got a little demo here I think we'll try and show, just to give you a taste of the kinds of things that are there. And I really think this is the main key and the main reason why people come to IBM, of course, I think is our cognitive services. Like I said, the Watson brand. There's a lot of really neat things you can do there. And why would you do it? I think a lot of people are struggling with data. When you get into the IoT, you've got hundreds of devices sending a lot of data at you. And the challenge is mostly now trying to figure out where the needles are in the haystack. I mean, there's just all this data that you may or may not find useful, And somewhere in the middle of all of that stuff are the little nuggets, are all the little pieces that you really want to be able to pull together and understand it. That involves sometimes just simple rule checking, looking for boundary excursions or whatever on a temperature, temperature or vibration. But there may be some machine learning involved as well. So you may have to do some more advanced data science type operations so that the system can understand and learn and then start predicting using, that's kind of what the reasoning part is, to be able to say, all right, based on what we've seen in the past, what we're seeing now, this particular bearing is going to fail within the next 100 hours. And those are the kinds of things you really want to get to in an IoT space, right? That one of the big payoffs is to be able to predict failures and faults. I think one of the larger areas that we see people implement are either smart buildings or smart infrastructure or like power plants or oil refineries, big deployed areas where there's a lot of expensive machinery, and you've got to be able to monitor all of this stuff in kind of near real time and then learn from it and to be able to predict what's going to happen next. And I think being able to predict bearing failures or valve failure or something based on some kind of performance data could be really critical in some of these industries, and could save massive amounts of money. It can always improve customer satisfaction and some of those things. So I think there's some neat stuff we can do in that area. I think you can see a similar application in agriculture, automotive, aerospace. There's lots of stuff and lots of different ways you can apply some of this technology. And I'm hoping that most of you are a lot smarter than I am and can come up with it, since you're trying to start a company around it. So I look forward to seeing what kinds of ideas would come from it. And finally, on the bottom right, where it says interact, and this is the one that everybody kind of starts with when I'm out doing hackathons and stuff. It seems that everybody goes there first, which is vision, image analytics, chatbots, and those kinds of things, because humans, I think, are still just trying to figure out the best way to interact with computers. And I think that the services we have in this area are enticing and are interesting ways to be able to get communication between these advanced kinds of learning and understanding and reasoning type services and us humans. So I think there's some fun stuff to be able to do there. A lot more research to go to be able to get more into conversation-based kinds of interfaces rather than command-based interfaces, we'll call it that. So instead of just turn the light on, it's the system goes, hey, I realize you're in the room and it's dark outside. You want the lights on? Or it just turns them on for you as the situation changes, because it understands the context of you and your conversation that you may have had earlier with the system. So I think there's quite a bit that we all can do with those kinds of interactions. There's a few things I want to discuss now. This is around the IBM Cloud Platform itself. We offer a development as a service. Some of you may have heard the term Bluemix before. As always, IBM likes to switch things up just about the time you get used to calling something something. They're going to change the name of it. So it is going to change just, I think, to the IBM Cloud Dashboard. I haven't quite heard what the final name is, but Bluemix isn't going away. They're just kind of changing the name of it. So heads up, put a little mark in your brain that even if we aren't talking about Bluemix in the ways that we used to in the past, all of that capability is still there and being expanded quite a bit. This is a web-based, cloud-based development environment. It runs on a freemium model, and then for entrepreneurs, there's other programs that you can get to expand the limits or to increase the limits that are placed on things. So a lot of times, if you just sign up with a generic account, you get what's called a freemium kind of account, and there's certain services that are completely free. There's some that are capped at a certain usage. Like so many, you can call the weather APIs so many times for free, or you can run so many image analytics kinds of operations per day, or so many megabytes of IoT data to the system per day. for free, and then above that then are tiered pricing levels. So that's kind of the way it works, and you can upgrade pretty easily. There's pay-as-you-go type services where you can upgrade the contracts. And like I said, there's quite a bit of that that we've done in partnership with Indiegogo. There's a lot more details on that can be provided. Here's just a screenshot I took the other day. The catalog has probably 130 to 150 services currently, and I just grabbed, I think this is just the top of it. I didn't do any kind of filtering or sorting or anything. But you can see all the different topics. It's pretty easy to, once you've got an application area created, you can just click on one of these catalog items and it will provision it automatically for you. And then there's documentation one click away. So it's also quite easy to then copy and paste the URLs if you need to, or the API keys or anything that you need to do is all pretty simple and pretty easy to get to. I think it's fairly easy. I mean, from someone that used to be a real-time software programmer and embedded systems guy, at first the kind of cloud and web development was a little bit mysterious, but the more I've played with this and the more I've done some things, the more interesting it gets, and it's really not too bad. I'd say it's pretty simple and pretty easy to do. One of the key things that you'll find in the service area is what we call the Watson IoT platform. This is one of the major services that a lot of our clients use, obviously, and this is a component on the cloud side that lets you connect and manage your devices. You can either connect individual devices, depending on what they are, or gateways, and there are several commercial gateways that will wake up and automatically connect already, so that way you can put small, simple devices out on the factory floor and then use a gateway from several different partners to aggregate that data and then shoot up to the cloud. So that's pretty neat. So that's one of the functions called the Connect capability. There's also some real-time analytics. So if there's some high-speed rule checking you want to do as the data is coming in, then these are ways that you can run high-performance rules on them. And then the interesting thing here is that some of those rules can also be tagged to push down to the edge. So like I said, we've got some partners with those gateways that will allow us to push some of these rules down to them so they can run their data rules at the edge rather than waiting for a round trip up to the cloud and back. If there are certain things that need to be watched and reacted to with a much shorter latency. So some neat stuff happening there. We also have a risk management capability in there. It helps a lot with security, encryption, both the data in motion and the data at rest. Helps you handle some of that. There's also blockchain built in there as well, so it's easy to spin up an instance of that, so you can start using blockchain with IoT. I think there's some pretty amazing areas there that haven't even been touched yet as far as how we can use the blockchain technology or hyperledger technology, whatever you want to call it, with IoT devices and IoT solutions. I think more than anything, I think blockchain was built for IoT. It's exactly what we need in space, and I'm excited to see what kinds of solutions are going to come out with that. And then finally, there's an information management component that helps provide access to all of the other bits and pieces of the Watson platform, so that way you can reach into the weather data and integrate that with all of your IoT data. There's driver information for cars, smart cars, and smart navigation. There's, like I said, all the text-to-speech kinds of things that are useful, and just dozens and dozens of other services that make it really handy and useful as you build your application. I also want to talk about a tool called NodeRED that we have up there. This is an open source project that we started a few years ago and turned it into or gave it to the JS Foundation, or donated it about a year ago. This is a neat little, again, browser-based drag and drop programming tool, and it works really well for this flow-based programming that happens with IoT. We've got data coming in or events coming in from all kinds of different locations. You want to orchestrate together a bunch of different services, whether they're IBM services or partner services or third-party services, and then do something with that at the end. Send out a tweet, send out a text message, make a phone call, send more data back out, to the IoT side, back down to the devices, or store it in a database or whatever. It makes it very simple and very easy to do, integrated and built right into our environment, so that way you can just kind of smack together an application pretty quickly. I also really like this. When you have an idea, you can draw a pretty quick picture of it and then go to town with it. It's pretty exciting, and I think it's a neat one. I also want to step through several other APIs. Like I said, my team and I do hackathons and meetups and workshops and various events all over the world, and work with developers one-on-one. And some of the things that I see almost everybody use, I just thought I'd discuss with you or at least present to you so you can see them and understand what's there. There are, this one is probably one of the most popular, speech to text. Everybody wants to build a chatbot, like I said, build something with voice commands. There's a lot of different things you can do with it, and we've even seen some like the automatic transcription of speeches. We've had some clients that have built devices that sit in a meeting room and will transcribe your meeting for you and then pull out all the key points and organize things into folders and do some really powerful things with it that were pretty cool. And it's neat because it'll understand, I think currently about 7 or 8 languages. It kind of changes off and on, where they'll add a new one, but it's 7 or 8 major languages, I think, is what it'll understand. There's another API you can call that will help you identify what language it is, and they can identify 14 or 15 languages. And then there's also some modules to help with translation, so you could maybe talk to your device in one language and it will talk back to you in another if you want it to, or perhaps you want to do some other things with it. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. It's pretty neat, and you just get back a text output. It's a full transcript, plus it's got some keywords. You can do some other things to it as well. It'll start understanding different speakers and identify each person's voice, and then give you a separate string for that. So you can do some really nifty kinds of things with that. And then what they usually do is glue that together with the conversation service. And this then is what you would use to build a chatbot. We have a lot of examples out there. There's dozens of examples of different ones. There's many cases where you've already used Watson and Watson Conversation when you talk to certain automated helplines, where you go in and you say, I need help with changing my flight, or I need help with checking into my room. Some of those are using Watson services to implement, so that's pretty cool. And some neat stuff that goes on there. The conversation services are neat. It's the way to create the chat is all graphical, and you show the conversation flow. It's pretty simple as far as you identify sort of these entity kinds of things and some certain operations. And then what's neat is you tell it at the beginning, I'm looking for a greeting word like hello or hi, and then somebody can use other words like hey there or howdy, and it understands it. You don't have to specifically put every kind of phrase in the conversation to be able to get it to understand it. So the neat thing about it is that the Watson side does a pretty good job of trying to understand a little bit more about context, and it gives you a lot of range in terms of how well it understands what you're trying to do. And then on the output side, it makes it also interesting is that you get context with it. So you can continue a conversation, or you could maybe switch the conversation from one device to another. As you walk through a factory, and you might be speaking with different machines along the way, well, they can all maintain the context of the conversation. So that way, as you go, you don't have to go back to each machine and explain everything about what's going on because they already know. So there's some really cool things you can do with the conversation context that I think will make interacting with devices or interacting with the physical world a lot more interesting in the future. Then obviously the other direction, text to speech. So that would be the other end of your chatbot, so you can have a talk back to you. There's 5 or 6 different voices you can use, male and female. So same kind of thing. I think it speaks in about 7 or 8 languages currently, and what you get back is like a WAV file or an OTG. You can tell it what format of audio file you want back, and it will give you a playable file from that. So that's pretty cool. There's also some stuff that I think is really powerful when you start combining it with IoT. And one of the big ones is the weather company data. I know we talk about this a lot, but the more I play with it, the more ideas I have on what you could use it for. And obviously some of it is, well, what's to have a chatbot, just say, what's the weather today, and then you can have it go look it up. But that's the simple stuff. I think the more interesting stuff is around either weather history or you want a detailed forecast somewhere else because your chatbot and your assistant or whatever has figured out that, oh, Greg's traveling today. He's getting on a plane. I want to help him pack. So I can say, hey, Watson, what should I pack today? And it will look at and you can say, well, let's check your schedule. Oh, you're going to be in New York, so it's going to be cold. So maybe you say, well, you better pack a sweater today. It's going to be cold where you're going. Because I used to live in Phoenix, and I can't tell you how many sweatshirts I've bought from different cities around the country because I didn't look at the forecast, and I'd end up somewhere without a jacket and have to go hit the hotel gift shop and buy a local sweatshirt somewhere because it was too cold. So just something like that would have been pretty helpful. But the other side of it on the history side is interesting if you're doing same kind of thing, failure analysis. You're looking at machine learning to say, hey, the vibration in this system changes based on the weather. Why? So all of a sudden you can start looking at, hey, there's some environmental impact to whatever's going on that we're seeing in a particular piece of telemetry. We've done an example where we call it "Where's My Stuff," and you stick a asset tracker on something, and then as it goes around, it's recording not only its local conditions as far as temperature, pressure, humidity, or whatever, but you could also then match that up with historical weather data for where that asset went, and then that way the people who shipped it and the people who received it can look at it and say, hey, you took that thing through a snowstorm. You told me you were going to leave it parked in the garage. If it's some expensive, asset of some kind of expensive vehicle or something that wasn't supposed to be out in the snow, you can kind of bust somebody for it, or maybe do that to catch your teenager when they're out with your car or something. I don't know. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do there. And then yesterday, somebody even asked me at an event, well, how many databases are out there that you can do? And I think there's 5 or 6. There's a bunch of different ways you can create data stores and jam stuff in there. So there's a lot of stuff you can do there as well, even just a basic data store. So those are some interesting ones. And then let's go to this pages. There we go. Then usually the next thing everybody wants to know is, how do I get started? So there are dozens and dozens of recipes, journeys, patterns, a lot of information that you can get. I believe we'll have these slides available for you afterwards that you can download. If I'm correct on that.
Yes, that's correct. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Greg. We'll come back to you in just a minute for the Q&A session. I do see some comments in the chat that people are having connection issues. Greg, are you all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm back now. I guess my microphone, it's weird. It goes on to mute. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. Where did you lose me?
We lost you just as you were asking if the slides would be shared afterward. And yes, this webinar is being recorded. So anyone who's having connection issues, there's a few people who are having connection issues. So it is being recorded, and we'll be able to share this later.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, it's funny. The mute, I have to watch. I'm staring right at the little microphone symbol on my panel because it just randomly goes to mute. I don't know why. So I apologize, guys. But anyway, yeah, so there's a couple links here you can use. That the slides are being shared. The links will be there, so you don't have to worry about writing them down. And places you can go to get some examples, how to get started, fun stuff. Lots of, quite a bit of these examples are pretty large and involved. They're not just toy examples, so that way you can get them. The code's all in GitHub repositories, so it's pretty easy then to grab it and clone it. And we wanted to make that as simple and easy as possible what we could. So
I'm happy to take it over from here, Greg. Thanks very much. So Waterbot is an example of one of our Arrow certified programs. So they're an Indiegogo campaigner that launched on our platform, and then they joined the Arrow certification program, and they not only receive support and help from Arrow, but they also receive support and help from IBM. So as you can see here, this is a testimonial from Chris Richter, president and co-founder of Waterbot. What is Waterbot? Waterbot is a smart water quality monitor that provides real-time peace of mind over the quality of your water. So that's what it does on an individual product basis for its owner. However, collectively, Waterbots store their data in IBM's cloud. Chris Richter noted that they are able to use the cognitive powers on IBM's cloud service to crowdsource all of this incredibly significant data that collectively can ultimately be used to help improve water quality and transparency. So this is a nice example of our Arrow certified campaigner who is basically able to take advantage of a number of benefits in the Arrow certified program and really use IBM's cloud services to really maximize the benefits for all of its users and communities. So moving on to our Q&A session, we have a number of questions that we're going to go into right now. So starting off first, is the Watson platform HIPAA compliant? So this is a great question. We seem to have lost Greg momentarily. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Greg, are you back? Greg, you might want to unmute yourself if you are talking.
well, I guess I'm back. Am I back now?
Yes, you're back. So we have a great question from Vicky Mayo, who's one of our entrepreneurs. Is the Watson platform HIPAA compliant?
I believe it is, yes, but I'd like to ask the right people on that. I think it's more of how you build your application more than anything else, because I know that data that sits at rest is encrypted, and that's one of the requirements, both in motion and at rest. But we'd have to dig a little further on that, so please reach out.
Great. Our next question is from Rachel Hankerson, and she wants to know, is there a dashboard that allows access to the analytics on a 24/7 basis?
Yeah, there is. You can go to, there's a thing called the Data Science Experience. If you look up IBM Data Science Experience, there's got some neat stuff there, and Jupyter notebooks that are all free, and lots of things you can do with that. And same kind of stuff. You log in, and there's a free tier, and then there's pay tiers above it that are pretty neat.
Awesome. So Greg, you already answered this question within the chat. And by the way, everyone else, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat as well.
Right.
Vicky wanted to know, is there a way to partner to do a hackathon? But perhaps you can talk generally also about the hackathons that IBM does.
Yeah, I can talk about that in general. There's a couple of different ways we work. And normally, I like to work with an organization that kind of puts on hackathons, because it's a lot of work just on the logistics side, and sometimes we'll hire out that part, or we'll work with someone like, there's 4 or 5 out there. I don't want to name names because then it'll sound like I'm favoring one over the other. But we can get you some of those names. We have put a couple on ourselves. It just, my team is really small, and it's really hard to do all the logistics of it. But we do like to go sponsor them. You know, some of the more successful ones I've seen are that we partner with a local university where your company is, and we get some of your employees, some students, and then some people from my team and other IBM experts there, and we kind of do it together, and that's always a lot of fun. And many of those, we don't charge for. We'll actually help sponsor, or we'll bring prizes, or bring our experts. So it's sort of a bonus in that way. If we work together on this, we don't normally charge for them.
Awesome.
And you got to get your requests in early, because my team's booked up pretty quickly, and we're full. So if we want to talk about it, let's get some stuff in as soon as we can.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much, Greg. Next question from Francis is really about the Arrow certification program. So conveniently wanted to know, how may I apply for the Arrow certification program? So please go on ahead to enterprise.indiegogo.com/arrow. That URL is right up on the screen right now, and you're welcome to opt in. And regardless of what stage of product development you're at, Arrow and IBM will be able to offer help to qualified entrepreneurs. There is a specific question here about someone's specific campaign, and please feel free to shoot us an email at indiegogo@arrow.com, and we'll be able to follow up regarding that. We can't really go into details on anyone's specific campaign status in this public webinar. We have a question from Dilip Kumar. This is a great technical question. Is there a particular IoT hardware list or SBCs that are IBM Watson compliant, or can I use any device which can run a C code? Greg.
Yeah, so there's I guess the answer to that is yes. For all of those, there are some devices listed on our ibm.com/IoT pages, where you click on it and we give you the recipe and stuff right away. If you go to our recipes section, there's probably your device there. Somebody has already connected it. It takes a real simple protocol called MQTT, which is open source, and there are libraries for it everywhere. I've hooked up really tiny Arduinos using some of their devices, using the libraries. We've hooked up BeagleBones and Raspberry Pis and Intel Edisons, and there's little tiny $5. There was one that was a $5 computer that we hooked up, and I forget what the name of it was. So lots of them out there. Just a quick search will be able to do it, or drop me a note and I can connect you to one of my technical guys that probably already has a GitHub library for you.
Awesome. And another question, so if you've already developed your prototype, what can you use IBM services for?
That's an interesting one too. I guess it depends on what you want to do. You have to think about what our services are, right? They're cloud-based, and they give you access to global data centers and cognitive services. So I don't know what your prototype is, but it would be more like, well, let's talk about, would any of these capabilities be useful? I guess is what it involves. So.
Awesome. Okay, and we just got another question here. IoT involves hardware. Does IBM have engineer modeling for thermo, optics, mechanical for prototyping?
No, that's why we partner with Arrow. That's their specialty. That's Arrow's stuff, right, guys?
Yep. They're on the line. Arrow's here too.
Got to throw something to them. That's Arrow's specialty for sure.
Yep. So definitely Arrow takes part of that. And what's nice is that you, once you apply for the program, the Arrow engineer, you get a one-on-one complimentary consultation. So, and that basically, scopes out, what exactly are your needs. We have another question here from Rachel Hankerson. Is it mandatory for a company to have an active Indiegogo campaign launched in order to be accepted into the IBM Watson IoT program, or would past campaigns serve as sufficient resources? So this is a great question, and actually I can take this one. Yes, no problem. So you can opt into the program and start using, access certain benefits from Arrow and IBM without having a live Indiegogo campaign. There are specific benefits for the program, and these are all listed under the terms and conditions, for which you need a live Indiegogo campaign. and that is primarily, of course, flash funding. Since flash funding goes toward your campaign funds, if you are a lucky winner, you obviously have to have an Indiegogo campaign. However, if you're earlier in your product development journey and you don't have a campaign yet, then of course you can apply for the program and start accessing benefits from Arrow and IBM. And on a related question, basically, what stage do you opt into the program? I mean, that's a good question. The program is comprehensive. It does offer assistance for you as long as you meet certain other requirements, whether you are starting off with just an idea or whether you're developing your product or whether you're in the prototyping stage, you know, it does help you. However, you have to meet certain minimum requirements. So you need to have either a hardware product, a hardware product with an electronics component, or you need to have a software component. So you need to meet certain standards there, but it doesn't, regardless of what stage, you may apply to join the program, and that after that, your application will be reviewed, and Arrow, IBM, and Indiegogo will respond accordingly. Okay, so we have another question from Dilip in Singapore. So his idea was approved for the Arrow certification program. Okay, so this is the question: does Arrow, Indiegogo, IBM have local contact in Singapore that he could work with? So Greg, if you just want to speak to what is the kind, you know, IBM's presence in Singapore or anywhere in Asia. Oh, hang on just a second. Looks like Greg's got some connection issues. All right, Greg, you're back, right? I think you're still muted. That's all right. So actually, Arrow, yes.
Okay,
So,
all right, now I'm here. It takes a while for it to come back.
Did you hear the question about a presence in Singapore and Asia?
Yeah, we have local offices in Singapore, obviously local field people there. So, you know, so there's hundreds of IBMers, probably thousands of them in Singapore, so we can.
Okay, and yes, if anyone noticed, Leah from Arrow also noted in the chat, Arrow does have contacts in Singapore, and they do have an office presence in Hong Kong as well. So definitely both of these companies are international and are able to offer support in local areas. I believe that's all. Danielle asked if there would be a replay. Yes, within 2 days, you'll be able to access the recorded replay, although considering some of the audio issues that we had today, which I apologize for, the replay may not be as have the entire presentation, but we'll see. And there was another question here about presence in India, and Greg, I don't know if there's anything to expand beyond, yes, you guys have a huge presence there.
Yeah, it's India is probably only second in size to the United States as far as how many employees we have there. So there's tons of support there. That's not a problem for us.
Awesome. Excellent. So Rachel has a good question here. How many companies are accepted into the IBM Watson IoT program throughout the year? So, I mean, the program was announced in July, I believe, of last year, and it's been running since last fall. So it's not quite, I guess, about a year old. We've had more than 4,000 entrepreneurs opt into the program. A number of the entrepreneurs, the qualified entrepreneurs, are in incubation stage, and then which means they're not ready for certification yet, but are receiving certain amounts of benefits that are limited to incubation. And then I believe we have a number, you know, less than 1,000 campaigns which are actually Arrow certified. I believe I'm echoing, so someone might want to mute themselves. Okay, so I have a few more questions here. What is the time frame from submittal of the application until the award is issued? So I believe this question is in regards to flash funding. So if you're AIR certified, you are eligible for a chance to win flash funding. So flash funding, the terms and conditions are on our website. I encourage you to go visit enterprise.indiegogo.com/arrow and learn about the flash funding program. Arrow committed to giving away $1 million throughout the 2017 calendar year. And essentially that is the requirements are listed there, but you have to be AIR certified. And there is no exact time frame for how often flash funding is given. That said, I can tell you that there's still $375,000 available to win throughout the rest of this year. So there is still time for you to join the program, become certified, and have a chance to win a share. Some more questions here. Does IBM or Arrow have a business incubator? So Arrow, I don't believe, has a business incubator. Greg, do you want to handle that question about Arrow? Excuse me, about IBM? Greg?
Yeah, it takes a while for me to come off mute, I guess, too, so I'm just going to leave it on. I'm sorry. But yeah, we do have incubator programs. They're pretty particular and picky about it as far as what we have. So you can drop me an email. I'll connect you to the right people.
Awesome. Well, I think we've just about gone through most of the questions here. So if no one else has any more questions, would like to thank everyone for coming to our IoT webinar with IBM. Thank you so much, Greg, for being our presenter today and offering all of your insights and knowledge about IBM Watson and cloud services.
Sure. Sorry about the audio problems here. I don't know why.
No worries. I don't think you're the only one who had connection issues.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.